Um, we are recording this session, and so then students, for those of you who are on the call, this will be available on our web pages probably in a week or so once we get everything sort of organized. But today we are calling this the power of networking. We just have so many experts on this call today to talk to us just a little bit about how to network, how to build the people around you who are kind of going through some of these same things yourselves. We have our Healthcare Management Association at the student level at UTD. And so now we're looking at, okay, how can we utilize the people that we know, the professional organizations such as ACHE North Texas that we should join. And then we have, two folks who are on the call, Jay Alexander and Jared Shelton, who are in the field. And so they're just going to give us some of their perspective on how, perceptions, how to utilize the resources that are available to you, looking at LinkedIn and how can you, really maximize that to better yourself, to learn more about the industry. And something for our experts on the call, the students often ask us, what can they do now while they're in the program, while they're studying, both undergraduate and graduate students, what can they do now to prepare themselves for a career in healthcare? So we've got a couple of questions here that students have sent in, and they're all really kind of tied to that. What are skill sets? What are experiences they should get? Are there characteristics that you all are looking for when you're hiring somebody? And are there things that students can do really to kind of broaden their scope, I guess, as they're entering healthcare? And so, I'll turn it over to you all. I'll keep an eye on the chat here, and as questions come up, we can throw those into the mix. But maybe we can start, John, with you, and kind of if you could introduce yourself and your role and a little bit about ACHE North Texas.
Absolutely. Thank you,
Thank
Quincy,
you.
for having us today. We really appreciate it. And hello, everybody. I'm John Whittemore. I'm the Executive Director for the ACHE of North Texas chapter. I am the one and only employee for the chapter, but yet it takes a team to make this happen. We have about 200 plus volunteers, including our board members and committee members. And so it really takes a village to really make the organization as successful as it is. For those of you who are not familiar with it, ACHE stands for American College of Healthcare Executives. Excuse me, and that is our national organization. And they have about 40,000 members, mostly within the US, some outside of the US, 70 plus chapters. And the ACHE of North Texas chapter is just one of those 70 plus chapters. We're very proud to say that we're one of the more active chapters. We're one of the larger chapters. We have about 1,650 members right now throughout the Metroplex. We do about 30 to 50 events a year. Excuse me, allergies. And so we're a very vibrant group. We, as I mentioned, we have those 200 plus or minus volunteers, and those are all channeled through either our board of directors or our nominating committee, or excuse me, our 9 different committees. Jared is currently on the board. Jay is a previous board member. So we have very active group. Now, of those 9 committees, we have a student council as well. And the student council obviously focuses on the programs that we offer our students and how we can better those programs. And I'm happy to report Hillary Dang and Jordan Ward are the UTD representatives this year on our student council. So we have representatives from all the different schools this year. And last year was the first year that our student council was actually led by students. So we're very excited that we're moving in this direction. And they've been putting on some phenomenal programs. So if you haven't been hearing about those, or if you haven't been participating in those, I would really encourage you to get involved with those. Now, just real quickly, before I pass it over to Jay and Jared, I just wanted to talk very briefly about how you can maximize your membership in ACHE once you become a member. The first thing I always say is I don't come from a healthcare background. My background is membership association management, and I've been doing this for 34 years. So I have seen memberships that have been very successful for the members and memberships that haven't. And the one common denominator for those that have had successful membership experiences is they have put they have put some work into it to make it effective for them. You're going to get out of your membership what you put into it. And I know that sounds very cliche, but it is so true. You know, if the more you get involved, the more you're going to reap the benefits of it. So how can you get involved? What can you do to be a part of the ACHE and get a lot of benefits from, especially here, the North Texas chapter? One is by attending our events. I mentioned earlier the student council events that we have, and we have other programs that we usually, when it's, especially when they're in-person events, we offer student discounted rates, so you get some special benefits, some special discounts there as students. The student council has an event coming up on November 6th, 9 to 11. It's a Saturday morning, and it's our annual DFW Healthcare Student Summit. Last year was the first year we ever did it, and it was extremely popular. I want to say we had close to 200 registrants there, 150, 200 registrants. And that was our inaugural event of that. And we're going to be doing it again this year. It will be virtually at least for this coming this year. But it's worthwhile event. So I strongly encourage you to participate in that. Again, that's November 6th, 9 to 11. If you want more information on it, you can go to ACHE NTX for North Texas, ntx.org, ACHENTX.org. Go to our events tab, and all of our upcoming events are posted there for you. If you are a member, you receive our weekly announcements that go out every Tuesday. And that's an easy way to really kind of monitor all the activities that we're doing. Anything that's open for registration gets put in that newsletter. So I encourage, for those of you who are members, to really monitor those very closely and see what's new for that week and what we have open for registration. So how do you maximize your benefit? Attending events is one thing. Second thing is networking at those events. Now, networking, I think a lot of people, think that, of course, you have to network and so forth. But again, it's a part of taking advantage of what you have available to you. You're walking into a room with who knows who's there, who's going to impact your career immediately, who's going to impact your career 20 years from now. You don't know. And the more you can reach out, make connections, network, and Jay and Jared are going to be able to share a lot more about that than I will, but just take advantage of those opportunities and get them and attend those events, network at those events. The third thing I was going to mention of how to maximize your benefits is volunteer to be a part of the chapter leadership and chapter committees. And you may think that, okay, well, that's very self-serving. We need your help. Of course, we need your help, but we would love to have as much help as possible. But the real benefit of volunteering truly is you're going to get to know other members at a much deeper level than you would possibly ever get to know them attending events. Yeah, you get to know them at events, and you get to recognize some people that you see on a consistent basis. But when you're attending committee meetings or you're planning an event together, it's a whole new experience. So definitely, get involved. If you're a member and you want to volunteer to be one of our committees, just send me an email. And I'll put my email in the chat box later on if it's not already out there. But send me an email. Let me know you want to volunteer, and I'll send you a quick questionnaire and you can tell us which committee you want to be involved with. And one other thing that I was going to mention as far as maximizing your benefits is we have a mentorship program, and that program is we're closing up the 2021 program, and then we'll take a little bit of a break during the holidays. But in January, early to mid-January, you'll start seeing notices in our weekly announcements, and you'll see that it's open. The 2022 mentorship program is open for applicants. And you'll find a link to the Mentee application. Just fill that out, and if you're accepted to be one of the applicants, then you get an interview granted to you, and then it's a quick interview. And if you're accepted into the program, you'll be paired with one of the healthcare executives who are members of the organization, those who have actually experienced it and those who are living it. So it's a great opportunity. We've heard so many wonderful testimonials from the mentees who've participated in this program. So those are 4 things that I wanted to share with you real quickly. The one last thing I'm going to share before I pass it over, I think, to Jay, is how do we network? And I'd love to throw it out there. If people could just real quickly in the chat box, send me a few words of how do you network? How do you successfully network? And you can unmute your lines if that's easier.
John, I'm gonna go one step further. I think everybody here needs to turn their cameras on as well. If you have a camera, we're networking. You can't network to just a name. You got to have a face to associate it with.
I love it. Perfect. Any
I
ideas?
think you all could teach a class here. This is what we're saying every day.
There we go. Look at that.
LinkedIn is a
Yes.
great way of
Thank
networking.
you, Nancy.
What else do we have?
Come on, I know somebody else is out there.
Talk to people and get to know who they are and what they are passionate about. That's an excellent idea, Jesus. Very, very good. Who else? How do you network? Say hello to guest speakers. Excellent. I love that, Nancy. Excellent. That's a great way to these are the people who just presented quite often. They've just presented in this panel as experts, and to go up to them and be able to say, you just talked about this subject. I'm really passionate about this. Can you tell me a little bit more about whatever, or make that connection and connect with them later on LinkedIn or whatever. But that's an excellent way. And build a relationship. It's not a one-time thing. Ani, that's on I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. That's great. It's a very good point. These are all really good points. The one thing that I always like to say is what networking is not. And I say that from the perspective of having spoken with some of our members who are in the C-suite. They attend our events, and in some cases, they've been bombarded with people asking them for jobs. Networking is not asking for a job. Asking for a job is not networking. So that's something I always like to throw out there, because some people think that it's okay to just go ahead and just ask. And the way I kind of equate to it is, I don't know about you, but if somebody I've never met comes up to me and asks me for a favor, and I've never met this person, I don't know them from Adam, and they ask me for a favor, it sends little red flags up in my head saying, "Ooh, back away, John, back away. You don't want to go down this path." And so my solution to it is, as far as networking is concerned, a great way to work around it. And I saw one of the questions that Rhea had sent us in advance that was submitted to us is, how does an introvert network? One of the things that I found, I'm an introvert, and one of the things that I have found is ask questions. Everybody likes to talk about themselves. Everybody loves to think they're an expert on the subject. So you can quite often accomplish the exact same things by just throwing out questions, whether it's, I tell me more about yourself. What is your position? Where do you work? Oh, you work in this. I'm interested in similar kind of area, or I'm interested in this area of healthcare. What would be your suggestions to me on how I might approach my next step in my career path? You're not asking for a job. You're asking for information. And you'll find that in doing that, you're going to shine to the person who, if you engage with that person in a way that it's very, that they feel like, you're asking for input, and you're not asking for favors. It very well could lead to the same results of you asking for a favor. It very well could lead to where, they may say, we have an opening right now, and if you're interested in it, here's my card, contact me and I can put you in contact with the right person. It may or may not happen. That's just something that I always like to throw out there. Asking questions, and not necessarily asking for a job. Jay, I'm going to
So,
pass it over to you. Quincy,
John,
yes.
if I could just interrupt a little bit. So, it sounds like you're talking about building relationships where it's not necessarily just what you get out of it, but it's what you can put into it. And so, we have a couple of students on the call who I think are maybe, and we can maybe have students put in the chat which year you are in the program, whether you're freshman through senior or if you're a graduate student. That might be a little bit helpful too. But I work with a lot of the students who are just straight coming in from even like high school who have really never even heard the term networking. What does that even mean? So, do you have some advice for students who are literally just starting out or who are literally scared to death of going into a room and not knowing anybody? What's one thing maybe they can start to practice to get ready for maybe their first networking type of an event?
That's a really good question. As an introvert, I used to, one of the jobs I used to have, I had to go to cocktail parties with these very influential people in the communities, and it was something I had to work at. It was not easy for me a lot of the time, and but I found that asking those questions and going up and approaching people and starting off on a personal level, if career intimidates you, are you originally from Dallas? Are you or from the DFW area? Where are you from originally? Oh, I'm from the DC area originally. And when you start to find commonalities, that the conversation starts to flow a lot easier, and it becomes a little bit easier and easier as you do it. And for those of us who are introverts, and those of us that it's not a natural thing to necessarily network, it is something you do need to practice. And whether it be, whether you go to church, whether you go, you're in a store and you want to engage with somebody, just add that little bit of extra conversation there to where you're actually putting into practice the skills of trying to make small talk, because that's how it starts out.
It's very helpful. It's very helpful. Thank you.
Jay, I guess, Jay, I think you're next on the agenda.
Jared, my whole success with LinkedIn is because of you. Do you want to go first? You're the one that got me started on that whole thing.
I was going to say it's all because of you. So
it's a relationship. See, it's
we were sitting at a board meeting and Jared said, "Hey, Jay, why don't you post a little bit on LinkedIn?" And that launched literally my professional career as far as becoming a LinkedIn mentor. So we have all these nice young people that are either just getting into the healthcare field, or maybe you are switching careers. There's lots of doors. And let me just start with saying that healthcare, we need every one of you. We need everybody's talents. We need whatever you can bring to the table. We need your unique strengths, and what you're not strong in, you find out who's strong in that. So maybe I'm not strong in networking, but maybe Blake is. So I'm going to partner with Blake. Hi, Blake. How are you doing? Nice to meet you. We'll be connected here in just a second. So I'll partner with Blake so that Blake has a strength where mine is maybe an opportunity. So I'm going to partner with him and I'm going to leverage his strength. And in healthcare, everything's about building a team. And the team is, you can't be a subject matter expert on everybody. So start figuring out who has strengths that you don't and start pulling them together. And that's building your network. It's also building your family, because it's your work family. There's things that are going to come to you that you're not going to know how to do. Do you really want to spend all that time trying to decrease that learning gap? And you may, but if you're not and you're busy, you need someone to kind of, come up beside you and help you leverage their strength while you're learning. You're decreasing the learning gap. So my whole thing in networking is finding people, matching strengths, finding their opportunities, and building a group of people together that we can come at a problem very quickly and efficiently with lots of diversity, inclusion, different walks of life. We can leverage our unique strengths, whatever they are. Everybody's got something that makes them different. And I like to bring all that together and like ready, aim, fire. And I'll give it to Jared, because that's what he did on the board when I was a board member. Go ahead, Jared.
Really good points, Jay, as usual. But no, I mean, networking, as John has mentioned, as Jay has mentioned, I mean, it's extremely important. Not only for your career development, but I think for just your development as a person, as a future leader, you're going to learn things from other people. And it's one of the reasons why I love being in healthcare is it's such a people-oriented business. We get a chance to meet people from all walks of life that we have the privilege to serve, that people that are on our teams. It's really, it's all about people. And I don't remember if it was Blake or who said it earlier, but it's all about relationships. That's what this business is about. Is if we can build strong relationships, that's the key to our success. And so, for me, I've always viewed networking as a long-term strategy that, as John mentioned earlier, it's not where you're asking for something the first time you meet somebody. In fact, there's a good chance that as you develop your network, you may never ask for anything from that person. And honestly, if that's the case, then you're probably doing it right. Networking is about getting to know other people on a professional and personal level, but understanding who they are, understanding what their background is, where they're going in their future, and understanding how potentially you guys can work together, benefit from each other, how you can help them. I think when you focus not on yourself but on the other person, your networking is gonna be very successful. So it's really not a transactional thing. Networking, it shouldn't be transactional. It shouldn't be I put in this, I get out that. It's really a long-term strategic transformational initiative that you need to put in so that you can strengthen not only kind of your own future opportunities, but it helps you to understand who you are as a leader even better. I really like what John said about commonalities, and I've always said that networking is about finding common ground with other people. I don't care where you're from, what walk of life you're from, if you're from halfway across the world, we have something in common. And I think if you make it an intentional effort to find out about that person, you're going to find out something that you have in common. And John kind of stole all my thunder, but there's nothing people like more than talking about themselves. So if you have an opportunity to do networking and you ask other people about themselves, one, they're gonna talk to you and they're gonna tell you a lot of things and you're gonna learn a lot of things about them. But two, they're probably gonna like you a whole lot because people like other people who ask them questions. So, but it helps you understand kind of where they're coming from, and if you can find that common ground, then you can really that's the stickiness in building that relationship. But it's got to be intentional. Networking can be very awkward, especially if you don't do it very often. I think there's some people that have been doing it for a long time that it's still awkward for. People who may be introverted or it just doesn't come naturally to them. But it is a learned skill, and you can and will get better the more that you do it. And so I think, one, you got to just tell yourself it's important. Like a lot of things in our lives, both professionally and personally, there are a lot of things that we don't want to do, but we tell ourselves that they're important to do, and so we do them. And hopefully you'll start to enjoy it the better you get at it. But it is something that you have to be very intentional about. And so, I think one of the best things you can do is set goals for yourself. With Jay, as an example, she's got a really easy kind of metric that she can look at on her LinkedIn profile, and she can really judge the effectiveness of her network building based on things like, how many new contacts has she made? How many mentoring relationships has she entered into? How many shares, of the post that she has on LinkedIn is she getting? I mean, that's a very kind of data-centric platform that you can use. But you can also set goals for yourself. I'm going to go to at least one ACHE networking meeting every quarter. You could do it every month. That's even better. But, if you set yourself a goal, it gives you something to work towards. And in the end, you'll look back on it and realize that you've probably made a lot of ground. by pursuing those goals. So, like I said, it's not something that comes naturally to everybody, but the more you do it, the better you'll get at it. And the more enjoyment I think you'll get out of it as you get better.
When I started ACHE, I wasn't really sure what was ACHE. What is this about? So I just started attending events. And so I started going, I actually went to every single event for like 8 months. Now I'm an overachiever, I get that. And then John Whitmore said, hey, G, why don't you join one of the committees? And I'm like, okay, So I joined a committee. 2 months later, I'm the vice chair of that committee. A year later, I'm the volunteer of the year, and then I'm on the board. So I made big jumps with ACHE than I would have ever made in my own working life. Why? Because the opportunity was there. It's a volunteer program, so everybody's there to help. You have lots of presidents, you have access to presidents and different fields, and we've got food services, we've got math, finance, you have a plethora of people that you can connect with. And even though I'm very outgoing, everyone's like, oh, Jay's not shy. I had a goal. My goal was every event, walk away with 2 connections. First, I started with business cards until Jared turned me on to LinkedIn. And then after that, it just went wild, right? So now, I've already got you guys keyed up. I'm already checking you out. Who's my next connection going to be? But my thing, and everyone comes with their own talents. I really enjoy connecting people. It's super fun for me. And I understand that we've got a very big gap in healthcare. So I'm kind of egocentric as far as I want you to take all these jobs we have. I'm trying to get everybody in the game because, there's a lot of people leaving healthcare. And so how are we going to get that next group of leaders in there? How are we going to cut the path and show them the way? We're going to do it together. And so that's, really my passion. That's really what's come out of my LinkedIn. And as Jared says, I put in the little chat there's a 30, 60, 90-day plan for you, right? Things that you can start. If you're just getting into the field, you need to do some assessments. You need to know a little bit about yourself. I like Strength Finders. Why? It tells you 5 things you're good at. So here I am. I'm at a networking event. I don't know anybody, but I can talk about 5 things I'm good at. I'm good at strategy. I'm good at individualization, right? Or I could say, hey, Quincy, have you ever done Strength Finders? What do you think about that? What were your top strengths? There's different things that you can leverage when you're trying to figure out who you are. There's the DISC assessment and an origin story. Who are you? How did you get here? And I may be 20 years old. That story is different than when I'm 50, right? It's different. It's an evolving thing. It's kind of like an elevator speech, but not really. It's where did you come from? When Jared would run our board meetings, tell us something about yourself. And then we would try to guess who it was. Well, nobody guessed. I was the one that was riding a motorcycle at 14, selling bacon, ham, and sausage burritos off the back of my bike, But it was fun stuff. That's how we got to know everybody, right? So my origin story is the need to kind of, fast track stuff. And then that's your 30-day plan, right? Your 60-day plan is, LinkedIn. There's some key things you can do: a headshot, banners, star status, things that you're talking about yourself. It's a transferable skill. So you did your origin story. Now you're going to transfer that skill into your LinkedIn profile. It continues to help you to talk about yourself, right? Because people are interested in you too. You're going to want to ask them about them, but you're going to want to know a little bit of stuff about yourself. So who are some beginning people you can network with? Your classmates. You should be connected with everybody in your class, right? You should be connected with Quincy. You should be connected with Nancy. You should be connected with everybody that's on this call. Jared, he's great about being connected, and he's got really great photos. And if you're really lucky and you're in a cell phone, his kid will call you and wish you a Merry Christmas, which was great. You can comment on somebody's post. So that gives you validity. Let's say Jared and his family, they went to, on Christmas Day, they went and said to the patients, they took little goodies for the patients, right? He did a really quick little shot on LinkedIn and, he's promoting his goodwill in what he's doing. Well, would you connect with them? You're like, hey, that was so great. Great to see you're involved in the community. You're inspired by that. Now you want to do that kind of stuff, right? And those are very easy things to do. Everybody's bringing something really unique to the table, and you can even do a post and write a post. What that does is now you're becoming a writer, right? So you're writing about stuff going on in the community. You become subject matter expert, known for that, whatever that is that you want to do. For me, it became LinkedIn. And I can tell you that most of my fans are ACHE because I absolutely love it. I go to every event that I can. And if it's virtual, it's you got to hold me back not to get me there. I'm shooting pictures, telling you who I saw. Great to check in with everybody. And, you know, I've been on every single committee, I think, John, except for maybe, I'm trying to think. If I haven't been a full member, I've been kind of a side member of like every single committee because I'm interested in what everybody's doing and how we bring everybody together. There's people from all over. I love ACHE because it's everybody together in healthcare. It's, you know, it's finance, it's IT, it's all of us together versus some of the other ones, which are great. They're breakoffs like HFMA or HIMSS. There's great people there, but you know, we're like the diversity pool of everybody, which is why I just think it's easier, I think, for people that aren't sure what they're doing. I don't even know what I want to be when I grow up. So it's very easy to go, you know, to the ACHE and say, hey, what are you doing? I've never heard about that. That's really interesting. And then, you know, other things that you can do for yourself. So there's lots of stuff that's free online, especially after this COVID thing. Critical thinking. So I went to a conference not so long ago in Atlanta, and they said that they were struggling with people with critical thinking skills. That's on my checklist. I'm going to do some kind of LinkedIn study or something about critical thinking because I need to know that if the incoming people don't come with that skill set, I need to know a little bit about that so I can share that, right? So, you know, I just met Nina, and Lena and I are having this great conversation. Nina, it looks like it's outside. You're enjoying this beautiful weather. That's so nice. I'd rather be sitting there right with you, maybe having a little, you know, cocktail, but not really. Okay, because we're being recorded. Anyways, let's hope you're 21. So anyways, you know, there's things that you can be doing out there, you know. So critical thinkings came up. Case studies. So I talked to the UNT Health Science Center kids, adults, last week about case studies, and they were saying that a lot of the internships they're doing case studies as interviewing. I want to get that out to you guys, right? I want to tell you about that. So if you've got, you know, you're being interviewed and one of the questions is you can buy a $2 million piece of equipment or renovate a room, you know, which way are you going to go? It was really fun to talk with the students about which way they would go and to see where they're thinking of. Tableau, that came up. So if you don't know about Tableau, you can take a free course on it. You don't got to be a subject matter expert. You just got to be able to talk about some of this stuff. Microsoft Project, and then Canva.com. If you guys are graphically challenged, Canva.com is free and it's awesome to use. And then there's certifications that you can dive into. There's a certified professional in healthcare quality. That's in every single industry. Quality is going to be across the board. Great to have that. Lean Six Sigma, project management, data analytics. So there's lots of places to dive in. And if you take these slides and just take some of these topics and then show up at an ACHE event and say, hey, Jared, what kind of quality projects do you guys do at Texas Health? Jared, what kind of quality projects do you do at Texas Health?
What kind of quality projects don't we do, Jay?
Exactly, right? But it's a nice way to start talking with him or open up a conversation about, you know, what it is. Because they're doing quality projects in imaging, the ED, nursing, environmental services. It's crossing every single border in healthcare. So when you go to events at ACHE, we have topics like this. And so you become a subject matter expert. And I'll end with this. It was a question that was asked in an interview. They said, hey, Jay, thank you so much for coming for this interview. Do me a favor and tell me, how do you stay relevant? There's so much going on in ACHE. And I said, you know what? Thank you for that question, because it's very difficult these days. I'm at work at 6 and I leave at 4 and it's an hour there and back. So that's, you know, that's a long day for me. But let me tell you what I do. I go to ACHE events. I'm very involved in the community and I'm very involved with ACHE because I can find out from my colleagues and the healthcare hot topics that they talk about what's really relevant and going on in our industry and also locally. So that's my pitch and I'm sticking to it.
I'll follow up just a few additional points. Just, you know, part of what John mentioned earlier is sort of, I could kind of sum it up and sort of, you got to know your resources. You got to know what's out there because there are so many different ways that you can get involved. ACHE has, you know, 100 different ways that you can get involved. The mentor program is phenomenal. There are 9 committees. There's ways to get involved in that committee. We have a service event. We have all of these different things throughout the year, but it takes some intentionality on your part to go out there and explore. Send John an email. If you know an ACHE member, you know a board member or a committee leader, give them a call, send them an email, ask them what's going on, how can you get plugged in. Part of it is you've got to put some effort into it to even know kind of what's out there. But I guarantee you this, if you do that, you're going to get a leg up. Because John, how many members do we have? 1,600?
1650 right now. Yeah.
We've got 1,650. I go to a lot of the events. I don't go to as many as Jay does because Jay's a machine. But I go to a lot of events. I see pretty much the same 200 to 300 people, I would guess, at those events throughout the year, which means there's a whole lot of people that are involved, but they're not as involved as, as they could be. And so if you think about it, just from purely a competitive standpoint, you're getting a leg up by getting out there. You're keeping up to date on the hot topics that Jay mentioned. You're building your network. You're making those meaningful connections. So there are so many things that ACHE offers that you can take advantage of. And of course, if you're interested in other fields, other parts of healthcare, HFMA, HIMSS, there's ways to get involved there. You probably have a local chamber of commerce that you can get involved with. I've done a leadership course through our local chamber of commerce here that was not healthcare specific, but it got me really plugged into what's going on in my local community. So you can do that. There's all different sorts of ways to build your network. And the more that your community is tied into what is going on in healthcare, I think the better for everybody. So one, I think you just kind of got to know your resources. And then, I think it's, we talked about the relationship piece and how personal it needs to be. One of the things, when you talk about it's a long-term relationship, this isn't, I met you once at this event, now you're part of my network and I'm never going to talk to you again. Jay has all these LinkedIn connections, but it's not that she connects with them and then they never hear from her again. They hear from her probably quite often. And you have to do that. You have to keep it up. And so there's a lot of different ways to do that. I still like going to lunch or going to coffee with people. I like face-to-face contact with other people. People feel good when you ask them to go do something. It was Maya Angelou who said, "I've learned that people will forget what you said, they'll forget what you did, but they'll never forget how they make you feel." And if you have an opportunity to check in on people, one of the kind of the life hacks that I do is if I'm ever out and about in the world, I'm going about my day. If I see something, experience something that reminds me of somebody in my network, I send that person a note. So, I have a friend who this weekend was talking about how he loves chicken noodle soup, which is very random, but he loves chicken noodle soup. Okay, great. Well, guess what was in our hospital cafeteria today? Chicken noodle soup. So I took a picture of it and I sent it to him. It's little things like that that help you to keep that network intact. And then as you continue to live your life and grow in your career, you'll have opportunities to have more meaningful contact, hopefully through ACHE, through other opportunities. But you've got to build that network. You got to keep that network intact over time. It can't just be, I met you 3 years ago and we haven't said hi or haven't done anything since then. You've got to be very intentional about building that. So handwritten letters are killer. So Jay, I don't know. I don't want to break your heart. I still do like business cards. But business cards, handwritten letters, there are still things that you can do that kind of have that kind of that personal touch that can make a big difference. So.
Well, you all were so thorough, and I had a list of questions, and you've essentially answered all of them. But realistically, how much time do you think it takes each week, each month to kind of do this well? And maybe if someone's just first starting out versus if they're in it for a while or they've maybe graduated, what would you say, what would be some recommendations for how much time students should spend doing some of this?
I think that it's an iterative process, right? You don't just meet a whole bunch of people like the connections that I don't have 13,000, but I can just about tell you every connection I do have. And so I round back with them. And, it's organic. It's nothing that's forced, right? I just connected with a few of you guys on this call right now, right? And I always send a personal message because Nina, I'm going to forget how I met you. And I'm going to be able to go back to my messages and be like, that's right. That's how we met. Because, it grows and you start to meet these people and it's just very organic. So sometimes I might have 3 or 4 events in a week. And sometimes I might go weeks without one because of COVID, which is a major drag. But, there's no right or wrong. That's the nice thing. You arrive in life where you are right now at this moment, and it's the perfect moment to start, right? And so you arrive at that moment, and when it's right for you, it will happen. So you don't have to rush it. You're not behind. You're right on time, right on target. You're taking the right classes. You're meeting the right people. You're arriving on time. So some of us don't want to be behind or, hey, I'm 50 years old. Not that I said that on tape and I'm being recorded. Okay. But, it is what it is. And so every age is fine. And a lot of times I'll talk with people and they want to get out of what they're doing. For example, I think she was a nurse and she wanted to get out of nursing and was really interested in diversity and inclusion. And here was my recommendation. Join the diversity and inclusion at ACHE and put that on your LinkedIn profile and be on that committee. Because even though you're not doing that during the J job, look what you're learning for free. And like I said, the board is wonderful because they're volunteers. So they kind of have to, I make them, but they kind of have to, help out or, spin your interest into whatever it is. If you're interested in mentorship, I was really interested in mentorship. So I became a mentee because I wanted to see what the process looked like so that I could turn around and be a mentor the next year and have better tools and bring other tools into it from my experience to, make that really great. So that's the cool thing about ACHE. There's so many areas to play. It's a huge playground run by volunteers. Nobody's competing with you. No one's trying to oust you or do better. Well, maybe Jared, he's a little competitive, but for the most part, we're all on the same team trying to bring everybody up, get ahead and, get a leg up. So like I said, it's very organic. Sometimes it's a lot, sometimes it's not. But at the end of the day, you arrived right where you're supposed to be because today was the day. You were supposed to meet everybody on this call. You were supposed to show your faces so we could see you, right? And that's really how it starts. So
Jay, I didn't take you for a Calvinist, but here we are. Everything's preordained, huh? Good points. I agree. I think one of the things that helped me, especially early on in my career, I had this mantra of why not me? And what I mean by that, or what I meant by that, especially early on in my career, is, why can't I be the one to try this? There were trust me, there are a lot of things in every organization that nobody wants to do. Well, I said to myself, well, why don't I do it? And give me an opportunity to learn something new, to meet new people, to do something that I've not done before, to build experience. And I was better off for it. So, I started out as an administrative resident at Texas Health Dallas. And, it's a big 900-bed hospital. It was really overwhelming, especially my first year there, because, I could barely find my way to the cafeteria by the 12th month. But it presented so many different opportunities for me to volunteer. And whether it's volunteering with ACHE or volunteering with a job or volunteering in some other organization, there are so many opportunities out there for you to connect and to prove yourself. But it takes you, I guess, to have that initiative, to take that initiative, to put yourself out there. And don't be afraid to fail. I have fallen flat on my face so many times. Some people like to still, I see some smiles here from Jay and John. They still like to give me a hard time about it. But, that's part of putting yourself out there, is that you've got to understand that you're taking a risk. And they call it a risk for a reason, which is that it's not always going to be successful. But what is going to be successful is if you do it, you get that experience. And that experience, especially in getting to know new people, is really, really critical. I'll give you one example from my early days when I was at Texas Health Dallas. There was a 5K race. Our hospital did a 5K race around the hospital for promoting heart health. Nobody wanted to do it. It was a total beatdown. It was all this work. You had to work with the foundation, you had to work with the local police, you had to get security there, you had to block off the roads, you had to promote it, you had to get people to sign up. It was just not real enjoyable work. And therefore nobody wanted to do it, but I volunteered to. I said, why not me? I'll do it. I've never run a 5K, which is kind of embarrassing, but two, I've never done a fundraising event before. And so, I'll try it out. And so I built so many relationships through that event with the foundation officers that I still work with today that help us raise funds in the community. I met so many employees that I had not met who signed up. I heard a lot of stories about people, why heart health was important to them. That really helped to motivate me and understand kind of the why behind some of the work that we do. But it's those things that may not seem like, it's a real attractive opportunity. But I think you got to look at everything as an opportunity to improve yourself, improve kind of your level of experience. So those are just a few tips from me.
Well, Jared, I'll have to say, Jared, that nobody fails. Those are all learning opportunities. You can't be afraid.
No, I failed. Yeah.
No, you didn't. No, I've seen some of your stuff. It's close, but it's still an opportunity that you learn from, right? And so that's the other thing is don't be afraid. The worst they're going to tell you is no, and no doesn't hurt. It's no one's going to get a spanking. Nobody's in trouble, so be bold. Sorry, Quincy, I didn't mean to cut you off.
I was just going to say, this just really aligns. We had a session earlier today and talking about visualize your career in healthcare. So what does this look like? And this theme is it takes time. It takes hard work, dedication. It's not going to happen overnight, and also not to stress because, it's progressive and it's going to grow. And what you are thinking you're going to do next year might not be the same case in 5 years from now. So kind of pacing yourself, I guess, a little bit. But what's one thing that you all, and we'd love to hear from all three of you, what's one thing that you wish your, just getting out of college self would have, what you would have known back then and what you know now? A piece of wise advice for yourself.
I can go first there. The one thing I came from a family where college was very foreign. Nobody, I felt like I was just floundering to get through college, and I went to be a high school teacher, and I actually taught for a year. And my position was part-time, and the administrator came to me and said that he wanted me to take on the debate team. Well, I had no idea how to do a debate. That was so foreign to me. And so I said, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. And I really was bobbing for air, preparing the lessons before the next day's class and so forth. And it just never dawned on me that when I wanted that position to go full time, he remembered that I had turned down that opportunity to take on one of the add-on activities, the after school activities, and and looking back on it, was like, well, duh, you should have known, John. But it really never dawned on me, and what I was saying about my family is I just didn't really have that experience where somebody said what, I think Jared was saying, put yourself out there, you never, why not me? That was not my attitude. I didn't even think of that. I didn't even think of it that way until after it was too late and I didn't get the position. But that was one thing that I would say for sure. And I was also going to say one other thing, in looking back on my career now of 40 some years, that for me, every job I've ever gotten was through somebody I knew, which really bodes well for the networking. Every job I've ever received is in some way or another, directly or indirectly, through somebody that I know.
Wow, thank you. I had started to write down tips in the chat, and then after 5 minutes with you all, I realized the entire thing I would just be typing. So I think that, we're going to really encourage students to watch this because, wow, this advice and these great tips you all have is just every moment is important. So anyway, sorry. Okay, who wants to go next? Jay or Jared?
So I wish somebody would have told me about confidence and competence. Okay. So one of my friends asked me to take this new whatever assessment. I said, sure, no problem, right? I scored off the charts on confidence, because I'm 100% sure that I don't know what I'm doing 99.9% of the time. So I am 100% confident, but you can't confuse that with competence. So just because somebody's not competent about networking doesn't mean that they're not competent. They are. And so you have to reach everybody, like in healthcare. You got to reach those patients wherever they're working out of. That moment, that exercise, that day, you've got to reach them. And sometimes you hit it right out of the box and sometimes you don't. But you need to understand the difference between confidence, competence. They work synonymous sometimes, most of the time that they don't, and just be very clear that you're okay with whatever they are at that time. So you might not be competent, but you have the confidence that you're smart enough that you can figure it out. If somebody's sitting right next to you, you didn't just come onto this planet. You can figure it out. Everybody here is smart, going to school, you can do it. But just allowing yourself the grace to know that you don't come out of the womb running, right? Like you got to learn how to do it. And one of the things that I'll usually say is, when's the last time you thought about tying your shoes? Nobody's thinking about it anymore because they've done it a million times. So nobody's better than you. They may have just done it more often and it looks very easy. So have the confidence that you will get the competence to do it.
Go fake it till you make it, Jay.
I'm still faking it and I'm trying to make it.
Well, I switched to only Velcro on my shoes, so that's how old I'm getting. I would say really be intentional, put some thought and some personal reflection into your why, your personal why about why you're in healthcare in the first place. The work that we do in healthcare is very serious. It's very weighty. It's very important work. It's a lot of long hours. I work a lot of 10, 12-hour days. That's a lot of time away from my family, away from other things that I like to do in my life. But I love my job and I love being in healthcare. It's a passion for me. And I really struggled my first few years working in a hospital because I couldn't really articulate my why. I thought I was pretty good at what I did. I was gaining experience. I was having some success, but I really had a hard time connecting it with something that made me go home at the end of the day and say, what I did was worthwhile today. It meant something to somebody. And it really took me some time and a lot of reflection to finally be able to make that connection for me. And when it did, my satisfaction level with my career went through the roof. And I'll give you a good example, kind of a story that I think helps illustrate it. When I started here at Texas Health Allen in January of 2016, we didn't have an interventional cardiology program. So we were not doing anything in the cath lab. We didn't have what's called a STEMI program or a heart attack program here at our hospital. And we're the only hospital in the city of Allen, which means that back before, before 2016, 2017, if a resident of our community had a heart attack, they wouldn't be able to come to this hospital. They would have to drive additional time to go to another hospital, either up in McKinney or down in Plano, somewhere else. And that added time often could be the difference between life and death. Well, we had a gentleman named David Seegers. I still remember his name. He came in to our hospital on April 1st of 2017. And just as some background, when I started in January of 2016, that was the very first thing that I decided we needed to do. We did a big strategic retreat with our team. We talked to the chief of Allen EMS. We talked to some other community stakeholders and the board of trustees. We decided that that was the most pressing service that we needed to work on and bring to this hospital, to this community. So we worked for about 16 months to bring this program to fruition. We had to recruit multiple cardiologists. We had to get different groups to come over from other hospitals. We had to build out the cath lab. We had to buy all the equipment, all the supplies. We had to get everything ready, build all the clinical competencies on the nursing side to get the program ready. And when our first patient came in, his name was David Seegers. He was a local man here in Allen. And I could say this, he's consented. There's actually a story that we published back in 2017 about his story. He woke up one day, went downstairs to have breakfast before work. His son, who was in high school, came down that morning and saw his dad, said good morning, and noticed that his dad didn't look well. And he was kind of gray and sweating, and he just didn't look well. He could tell that something was wrong with his dad. And so he told his dad, "Hey, I think something's wrong. I think I might need to take you to the hospital." And, David at first tried to shake it off and say that, everything was fine. But his son persisted and finally got him to get in the car, and they drove him here to the hospital. And he walked in, and the staff immediately knew that this man was really sick. And they hooked him up to the EKG machine, and he had what the ED staff commonly refers to as the tombstone EKG, which is basically a complete blockage of his vessel. And he was minutes away from dying. And just so happens, by the grace of God, our cardiologist who was on call that day was literally in the room next door checking on another patient. He came over, saw the EKG, activated the cath lab. They got the patient up, and they had his vessel open in a matter of minutes. Now, he survived. He was discharged. He finished his cardiac rehab here at the hospital, and he is home now with his family and doing well. But I trace back to those 16 months of work that we put in that didn't really seem to connect to the why very much, right? It was a lot of administrative work. It was a lot of business work, stuff that wasn't real personal. But at the end of the day, we had this program available. We had the care available to this patient that when he came in that day, we had what he needed and we saved his life. And if we hadn't had that patient, if we hadn't gone through those 16 months of program building, we would have had to call EMS, arrange for a transfer, waited for the ambulance to come back and get him, take him to another hospital, and then start the whole process at another place. It probably would have been over an hour, and he probably would not have lived. So that's kind of the why that I've learned about myself and my career, is that the work that we do, although we may not be taking care of patients ourselves, we're working in support of those that are taking care of the patients. And so whatever path you find yourself going down in healthcare, you really need to find what that why is and why it's important to you, because there's a lot of other ways to make a living. Healthcare should be purpose driven. And so find that why, really meditate and reflect on that. And I think that'll help make you very successful.
Well, that kind of leads me just to my last question. And really, I think you probably all just answered it. But, what's one thing the students can leave this call like a homework assignment? One thing we're kind of pushing the students this week to create action items or action plans for themselves, but, a tangible step that they should take. So what's one thing they should leave this call and go home tonight and do, or this week maybe?
Well, I would just do it. Jared told me you need to dress up your LinkedIn profile. And I gave you some 30, 60, 90-day starters to get started. Those are your appetizers. What homework are you assigning, Dr. Whitmore?
I would say, and it's very self-serving, but join ACHE. Get involved, get connected, whatever that looks like for you.
And I'm not a doctor, Jay. I just play one on TV. I would say volunteer for something, whether it's at UTD, if you're working a job for an assignment that your boss didn't ask you to do, go volunteer at your local hospital. Pretty much every hospital around here has a volunteer program. I think Blake is one of our interns, so you can talk to Blake about how to get involved there. But pretty much every hospital in the area is going to have a volunteer program that you can just get a foot in the door, and you're going to get to know people. You'll get to know other volunteers. You're going to get to know staff. You have probably an opportunity to get to know the leadership. I have a volunteer program here at my hospital, and I know almost every one of them by name. And to me, that's really important. To them, they're just trying to give back. But we also have a lot of students who are trying to learn more about what it's like to be in a hospital. So go volunteer for something, something that nobody's asked you to do.
And just for the little plug for the volunteering. So when I moved to Texas after being gone for several years, I wasn't sure how I was going to get back into my profession. So I volunteered at Texas Health Allen. So they didn't know I was a tech. I don't know if you know this or not, Jared. So they didn't know I was a tech. So I volunteered, and my spouse at that time had a stroke, and I was a volunteer. So, I mean, got to see everything, which, everything ended up fine. But it was a nice way, again, for me to get in. It's that whole volunteering. You get in, you meet people, you network. Who are the influencers? Who's the people that make the decisions? It's a nice way to get in, and everybody helps you because you're not trying to get for their job. So before, and then when they had an opening, I disclosed that I was an imaging tech, and they hired me on the spot. So it was the way that I worked myself into the job, was by volunteering. And I'm sure that surprises you, Jared, right?
Well, wow. Thank you all so much. Any last questions from students or anything you wanted to put in the chat for us? Okay. Well, thank you all so much, Jay, Jared, and John, just for taking the time and talking with all of us. This is being recorded, so we're going to, send this out to students, and invaluable. The advice is invaluable. So thank you so much.
Thank you for
Hi,
having
I don't
Thanks for
know
having us.
if it's too noisy, but yeah, thank you so much for your time, everyone. Is it possible if I can connect with you guys on LinkedIn?
What's LinkedIn?
So
Yes.
my connection's already sitting in your inbox.
Oh, awesome. Thank you so
So,
much. I look forward to it.
And if you need any help with LinkedIn, feel free to message me. I'll be happy to help you guys out.
Okay, I would love that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, you guys.
Thank you
All
very
right,
much.
everybody. Take care.
Bye.
Soon.